Welcome back to Aging is for Everyone. We are talking about options for senior care today. And one of the questions that always comes up is, how do I pay for this? So I'm going to put you all on the hot seat now, ladies. Why don't we start with the least restrictive level of care, as we call it in the trade, the senior housing. What are some ways to pay for, you're leaving your house, you're moving into a senior apartment?
Well, certainly there's a couple options for apartments. There are subsidized apartments, senior housing options here in Western New York, which are set up for lower income individuals. The federal income has set out guidelines, and that subsidy would be through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and then rents are calculated based on what they can afford, so as long as they met the requirements. So that's one option, and then the other would be a standard market rate apartment with a set rent.
Okay, so that would be,
it's pretty clear cut.
Pay it right out of your, your income and pay that rent every month.
That's correct, and in some cases that would include utilities, and most senior environments, it includes a good portion of the utilities.
Okay. Now our next level of care, we have the assisted living, adult care facility level. People can obviously also pay privately for that.
They can, yes. And we would also look into to see if someone would be eligible for the VA benefit, the aid and attendance benefit. We would also look at Social Security, pension, and supplemental security income as well.
Right. Now, Medicare does not cover that level of care. So people need to know that, because that's always people think, oh, Medicare will cover it for almost everything, and then they find out, oh my goodness, Medicare does not cover that.
It's very important. It's one of the questions that we frequently do get asked from a lot of people.
Right now. And then, of course, nursing facility care. How do people pay for that?
At a skilled facility, generally the rates are a daily rate, and they may range from everybody, maybe not everybody, but people, private pay to private insurances to Medicare HMOs, Medicare, and Medicaid. So it really depends on what brought you to the facility. Oftentimes after a hospitalization, usually requiring a 3-night stay, Medicare will cover 100 days of skilled nursing care. Generally the first 20 days are covered in full, and then there's a copay thereafter. But however, a lot of people do have HMOs or Medigap programs that will cover that copay as well. However, Medicare is not a long-term insurance policy, and after the 100 days, if you choose to stay, if you're required to stay in the nursing home, you may need to privately pay until you've spent your resources, and then Medicaid will pick up thereafter.
Right. And of course, we're not going to go totally into Medicaid and Medicare and all of that today, because that's a whole nother show. But it can be very expensive for nursing home care. So that's one thing maybe people want to look at, and ask that question, what are the costs? Because that's another good question for folks to know. What are some, what happens to somebody, say, if they're in the nursing facility and they run out of, they just spend all their money. They go on Medicaid.
Generally what we do is, when people do first come to the facility, we ask them to kind of paint a clear financial picture for us as far as what sort of resources they have access to, whether it's pensions, as they had mentioned, private resources, long-term care insurances. There's any number of programs that people might be a part of. And Medicaid will generally pick up what you cannot afford thereafter. So if you do have a pension, they do require that you pay what you can towards your care, and then Medicaid would pick up the rest. But what we do is, as people start to get near the end of their own personal resources, when we help them with case management and help them guide them through the Medicaid application process.
Right. But the person doesn't end up out on the street because they can't
absolutely
pay
not.
Okay, that's good to know. And there's, we should mention too that there's some different rules if somebody has a spouse as well regarding Medicaid. So. Now, what about at the adult care facility level? If somebody is in a facility, and I know it may be different from your facility and other facilities too, so what happens
Well, the same thing. By no means would we, kick anybody out because their money ran out. We would look to, again, supplemental security income. If we can go ahead and apply for that, we would definitely do that. But it would, ideally, it should be established before a resident moves in, and then we can work out a plan.
Right.
And go from there.
Right. So you'll know how much.
Yes.
You know how much money they have when they're coming in, and maybe when it's going to run out, or.
Right.
Right. Right. And is that, would you say, an important question to ask a facility? Like, what happens when my money runs out? Because, like I said, not all facilities may be the same. They may be in a situation where they have to tell you. I mean, most nursing homes aren't going to be in that situation unless they don't accept Medicare or Medicaid. But. So that's a question to add to our list.
Yes, that's a great question.
Okay,
yes.
okay. And Cassie, what about at the independent?
Well, usually what happens in independent apartments, they're independent, so therefore they have the resources, and it's a constant.
Right.
It's when they get to a point where they need to move on in their care, but at that point they're also moving out of the apartments as well.
Right.
Certainly with subsidized housing, that is not an issue because rents are reevaluated every year, and once again, they're budget-based.
Okay, okay. So we definitely want to add and make sure that we have on the list what happens when my money runs out.
Absolutely.
And of course, we also want people to know that a lot of this information, again, is on the Winneasa website and Western New York SeniorCare.org. And another thing is there's an assessment on that website for folks that they can take. And what does that, it asks some common questions?
Yes, it's basically an assessment tool that helps the user guide themselves through what sort of services that they may need. It will ask simple questions like whether or not you need help preparing your meals, or do you need help getting out of bed in the morning? Do you need help using the bathroom? Things like that to kind of guide them towards, what sort of level of care that they may need.
And I know that if they did that, and I believe that they can put in a zip code and then get the care that's in the area that they're looking for, which I think would be very helpful for a lot of people.
Yes.
Now, somebody doesn't have to do it for themselves. Like, you could do it for your mom.
That's
okay.
right.
Okay, well, that's great to know. You guys have given us so much good information, and we want to make sure people go to winneasa.org and Western New York SeniorCare.org, WNY SeniorCare.org, and find out more information about all the services that you guys provide, all the other senior care providers out in Western New York. And I want to thank you all again for being with us. And thank you for being with us for another episode of Aging is for Everyone. We will see you again next month.